The San Francisco 49ers are preparing ahead to New Orleans to face the Saints, but they're a little shorthanded on offense. We're going to talk about some of the key injuries and, of course, some of the key matchups in this game on today's 49K Pod.
You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Friday, September 12th, and as always on a Friday, KP, you look a little different today. That is because we have Coach Dezi on the line. Dezi, thank you so much for joining us today. KP's about to be here in a couple minutes. I screwed up the time, but Dezi, how are you?
I'm doing great. I mean, it's a rough start to the season, but otherwise, I'm going to stay optimistic. We're only at week 2. We got a lot of season left, and I think the next 4 weeks we'll get through the rough patch and we'll be in better times. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's still a little early to burn it all down, but after 1 week of football, it's not looking too great. So, Dezi, we're going to talk about some of these injuries here, and it's still a little early in this Friday, so we don't quite have the game status yet, but we do have the practice report coming in from some of the beat writers. So, according to Matt Barrows, who is on hand, he said, as far as the players not practicing, Brock Purdy with the toe and shoulder injury, and Trent Williams with the knee injury. He is in uniform, though, and warming up on a side field. Jauan Jennings is on hand, so that seems to be positive. But Dezi, I think the first one I want to talk to you about is actually Trent Williams, because he seems to still be in line to play. We know Brock Purdy's going to miss some time, but at least for Sunday, we know Trent Williams probably going to play, but he's been dealing with this knee injury that popped up on the injury report this week. However, he was able to finish week 1's game. So how did you think he looked in that week 1 game?
I mean, it's a slow start, but I mean, what do you expect from a guy who's a veteran, who's been in the league for so long, a little bit older in age, hasn't really had any time in the preseason to play. So we would expect kind of a slower start. He's taken some hits over the years for sure. He's competed at the highest level possible, top guard in the league. So, I mean, you do kind of worry about how much these little chronic things may spring up, especially so early in the season. But, he's strong if he thinks he can make it out there. And if, they're going to put him out there, of course, we're going to take him because we need it. All hands on deck.
And even a Trent Williams at less than 100% is going to be better. It's going to be above average, right? So I think we'll definitely take that. But we'll see what he's looking like on Sunday. We got KP on hand. What's going on, man? I screwed up the time. So yeah, that's why you're late. But we were just talking about Trent Williams, and it looks like he's not practicing today for the 49ers. So Dezi doesn't seem too worried about it. Maybe just a slow start for him. And Dezi, he's always kind of playing through something, right? I mean, at 37, it's like, man, even getting up out of bed in the morning is probably a bit of some pain there. We could all identify with that. But Dezi, let's get to Brock Purdy, who we know, based on reports, is going to be missing 2 to 5 weeks. Now, as far as the toe injury we keep hearing about, it's like a variation of turf toe, right? I guess. How many variations are there? And it does seem like it's on the more positive side based on what John Lynch had to say about it on KNBR earlier this week. But does 2 to 5 feel about right, or are you thinking more on the positive side as well?
Well, 2 to 5 sounded a little wonky, right? Like a turf toe. 2 to 5 is like a very broad, wide range of a timeline to give. So I wonder if that was just initial reports before like an MRI was done, because certainly there are grades to a turf toe. I mean, you think it's a toe, how bad can it be? But 9 times out of 10, turf toe happens to your big toe. The big toe is responsible for most of the power in your run, in your sprints. The push off and the propelling forward of even a walk comes from your big toe mostly. So it does matter. And so is it the big toe? 9 times out of 10 it is. But if it's not if it's just kind of tweaking of the tissue there, you would expect him back in 2 to 3 weeks. And that was kind of the timeline I'm thinking. I'm thinking maybe 3 weeks. I think they would know by now if there was a tear or, a partial tear there. And I think that would adjust the timeline. So to your point, what John Lynch said gave me a little bit more hope because it sounded like it's more of a week to week thing. So I would be hopeful of a return in like 2, 3, at the worst 4 weeks, but I really think 2 to 3 weeks. There's some athletic taping and things that you can do to help bring somebody back a little bit sooner too. You just probably won't see him scramble as much, and you wouldn't want to put him out there if the line really can't protect him.
That would be best case scenario if he's back that soon, at least for that game against the Rams. It'd be nice to have him back. But KP, do you have any questions for Dezi before we let her go to the DMV?
It looks like you need to go enjoy yourself and stop talking about football. That's what it looks like.
At the DMV, I don't think so, but
yeah, we might be saving her a bit here.
I think Steph has a plane to catch, and that sounds a lot more fun than what I'm about to do.
Yeah, I gotta jet out of here kind of soon, but that's another story. But yeah, we'll get the game status report probably at some point when we're live here, so sit tight for that. But Dezi, we're gonna let you go. Thank you so much for the update and for your insight as always. We'll have you back next week. Yeah.
Sounds good. Go Niners.
Awesome. Thanks, Dezi. All right. And as far as Jauan Jennings, it looks like he's practicing, so that's probably a good sign for him. KP, on the Saints side, they're dealing with some injuries too, and we do have their game status report already. A couple of key injuries on their end. Julian Blackmon, their safety, going to be out. He probably heads to IR, honestly, but he's obviously going to be out for this game. Chase Young has yet to make his season debut for the Saints this year, dealing with a calf injury. He's also going to be out. And their guard, Trevor Penning, with a toe injury, also going to be out. Talise Fuaga, their tackle, right tackle, dealing with a knee injury. He's questionable. But, I mean, it seems like both teams are dealing with their own injuries. I'd say feels like the 49ers dealing with bigger injuries. It's not a competition, but it kind of is, right?
Yeah, I mean, okay, they drafted Fuaga in the first round last year. Obviously, he's going to play a big factor. Julian Blackmon is their starting safety. Obviously, he is going to play a big factor. The quarterback is going to trump all of these.
Yes.
George Kittle, he's just a quality player, a future Hall of Fame player. So, needless to say, the 49ers got the short end of the stick, shockingly, on the injury report. Here's what I should have asked, Dezi. I put this on Niners Nation last week during the game, but it's not like the 49ers suffer these injuries to the second string defensive lineman, right?
Yeah.
The third string defensive back. It's generally their best, legitimately their best players. And in this case, Purdy and Kittle. Last year, Trent Williams, Brandon Ayuk, his knee. So it's almost in the most literal sense, they're losing their best players every year to injury.
Yeah, I agree. And it's very unfortunate for this team. We continue to ask ourselves, why does this keep happening, even with all the different strength and conditioning coaches that they've had along the years? It kind of defies all logic. But let's get into this matchup and let's take a quick look at the Saints defense for this week. All right, so you got Kool-Aid McKinstry, Isaac Yiadom. There you go. We got Isaac Yiadom facing the 49ers this week. Yiadom revenge game, maybe. And then on the defensive line, some key guys. Cameron Jordan, obviously, is still a hell of a player. I think he's going to have some impact in this game, potentially. Demario Davis, their linebacker. The big one that we discussed, right? Their safety. Their starting safety's out. Jonas Sanker, the rookie, is going to get his first look at some NFL snaps here. So I think this could be an interesting matchup. It's not the scariest defense, but KP, based on what I saw last week against the Cardinals, there were a couple of things that surprised me about them. So I definitely wouldn't look past them. Yeah,
I mean, you can't look past any defense. These are NFL players. I would be interested to see how aggressive the 49ers are given their offensive situation, right, with a backup quarterback on the road. And I know, like we just talked about, it's the Saints, but also you don't want to put your backups behind the 8 ball, right? You don't want to make Mac Jones have to win a football game. So with that in mind, I'm pretty fascinated to see how Kyle calls this game, because when they were most successful last week anyway, it was targeting Ricky Pearsall. It was underneath to McCaffrey, spamming targets. So, I mean, there's no real reason to go away from them. And, I mean, last week we're talking about Isaac Yiadom. He was targeted 5 times and allowed 4 receptions. So, have to imagine they're going to go after him as opposed to McKinstry, who was supposed to be a first-rounder. So, still a high draft pick.
Yeah, and I think the key thing here, I mean, you mentioned it, obviously, it's Mac Jones who's going to be in at quarterback. Last week, Brock Purdy was pressured quite a bit, 43.6% of his dropbacks. That was the 3rd highest rate in the league in week 1. When facing pressure, the 49ers offense ranked 20th in EPA. And so on the other end, the Saints defense were 28th in pressure rate in week 1, which, that probably bodes well for the 49ers this week. But when they do achieve pressure, they were 10th in EPA. So how do you feel like these two match up? I definitely feel like Brandon Staley's going to try to dial up some pressure for Mac Jones, just knowing that, he doesn't have quite the mobility of Brock Purdy in the pocket. I know sometimes he could bring it out every now and again, but it's just not the same.
Yeah, so Staley blitzed Kyler on 44% of his dropbacks, which is pretty staggering. So you'd have to think if he's aggressive like that against a mobile quarterback, he's going to be just as aggressive, if not more, against a guy like Mac Jones. I mean, at the same time, just because you blitz doesn't mean you're going to get home. Just because you blitz doesn't mean like that. It could just be him making up for what he perceives to be a lack of pass rush. And Shanahan was on KMBR talking about, how Mac Jones knows where to go with the football and how that was one of his highest, just his best qualities coming out of college, and he's proven that in the NFL. So, like, if Jones is ready for the blitz, he should just be playing hot potato with the ball and just getting it out quickly. So that's what I would imagine the type of game plan we see.
Yeah, Kyler Murray sacked 5 times last week against the Saints defense, so they're no slouches. And, yeah, I think the key for the 49ers is going to try to get the ball out quickly. But, KP, I feel like a big reason that we saw Brock Purdy's time to throw last week be one of the highest, and because we saw these pressure numbers be so high, part of it probably has to do with the fact that maybe some guys aren't getting open as quickly as you would like. I feel like Mac Jones is going to have that same issue this week. So, yes, I think if he does get the ball out quickly, it's going to be check down. That just, kind of taking what the defense gives you. And maybe they could hit a deep shot or two in this game. I do like Mac Jones' arm a little bit more. But, yeah, like, are there any concerns about just, like, the supporting cast that Mac Jones is going to have in this game?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there has to be, right? Because this would have been a matchup where Kittle has 10 targets and Kittle goes off. So maybe they supplement that with even more McCaffrey touches, because he was, again, once again automatic last week. But once Jauan Jennings went down, that's when they really started to struggle to get separation. Russell Gage just did not look like he belonged. MVS was basically just running dummy routes down the field. So I think it would be nice to have Jordan Watkins back in the fold. That way they can have some speed on the field. And Mac Jones and Kendrick Bourne have that connection. They have some camaraderie there. So that would help. But they need Jennings to play, I would imagine, just so you have the Pearsall, Bourne, and Jennings trio would just go a long way for Mac Jones over these next couple of games until they get DeMarcus Robinson back.
Yeah, and I don't know how limited, Jauan Jennings is going to be with that shoulder injury. Maybe another thing we could have asked Dezi, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe even he is a bit of a decoy if he's not quite at 100% out there this week. But that means like maybe Ricky Pearsall has an opportunity to do something here. We'll talk more about him in a bit, but let's look at the Saints offense. All right, so Spencer Rattler, Alvin Kamara, it feels like he's been part of this team for forever. But Rattler, getting another chance at being the starting quarterback for the Saints. And I think he, at least for last week, he looked a little bit better. The stats don't really show that, but I think hanging in when there's pressure, escaping a couple times, I felt like he showed a lot of poise in the pocket, more so than I've seen from him in the past. And he has a couple of pretty good pass catchers that he'll be leaning on: Chris Olave, Brandon Cooks, Rashid Shaheed, Jauan Johnson is a big target for him. We talked about the offensive line. I think that's going to be key in this game, KP.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the difference of Saleh was pretty apparent, right? How aggressive he was. And the 49ers were coming at the Seahawks in waves along the defensive line. I think that's why ultimately Bosa was able to wear on them. But I think one of the biggest differences between the Saints and Seattle. So last week we were talking about how Seattle, they just ran the ball nonstop in the preseason. Last week, Spencer Rattler was throwing the ball all over the place. He had 46 attempts or something crazy like that. So maybe this is an opportunity for to see what kind of coverage ability Upton Stout really has, especially if he's going to be going against Chris Olave in the slot there. But they're going to have eyes on the tight end, Jauan Johnson, because he was pretty highly targeted last week as well. So Olave had 13 targets, Johnson had 11. But, I mean, if we're talking about the middle of the defense, I thought the way Fred Warner and D. Winters played last week, that was lights out. So, being able to trust both linebackers in coverage will go a long way with Saleh. So last week, Saleh just blitzed Winters and he left Warner in coverage, and that's going to work 9 out of 10 times. So being able to have that secondary linebacker who can blitz, unlike they had last year, should go a long way in being able to slow down guys like Johnson.
Even with throwing as much as he did, Rattler only completed just 58.7% of his throws in week 1. And again, that's kind of going with a bit of a shorter pass game and looking at the intermediate areas of the field. And that's, I think, where the 49ers are best at, as you mentioned, with these linebackers that they have. So I think that's where this matchup comes out ahead a little bit. But I think still with these pass catchers, Olave, Jauan Johnson, something to look out for if the Saints are smart. And I don't know that they are. Maybe but if they are smart, I would imagine that KP, they probably go to targeting Upton Stout as well. Chris Olave ran 41% of his pass routes from the slot last week. That was a career high for him. And if they watch that game against Seattle, they're probably seeing what JSN was able to do, Cooper Kupp out of the slot, and thinking, hey, let's try to do the same thing. Let's target the rookie as well, see if he learned anything. And Jauan Johnson, of course, also a crazy target share, as you mentioned. And interesting to note, 34 snaps out of the slot from him versus 28 in line. A huge target for Rattler. That's his security blanket. So I think if they're looking for favorable matchups, maybe that's where they go. But for the most part, if these guys, particularly Johnson's going to be lining up against Steve Winters or Fred, I feel good about that. But just something to keep an eye on if the Saints move towards wanting to target Upton Stout.
Sure. And how many of those targets are at the end of the game when the game's out of hand and they're just throwing the ball all over the place? And obviously it'll be tough for the 49ers to get out ahead with a backup quarterback and without Kittle over these next couple games, regardless who the opponent is. But still, I would also feel very confident in the Winters/Warner versus Johnson. So I thought Saleh should get some credit for a lot of different things last week, but he pretty much scrapped his cover 4 usage. So over the past 4 years, Saleh's defenses, they live in cover 4. They've led the league in cover 4 usage, but they only ran it 12% of the time last weekend. One of the very first or not the very first plays, but they had Seattle ran some nice quarters beaters, and they were able to get Stout in some just one-on-one situations that he wasn't going to win in. So Saleh went away from that. I thought that was pretty heady and attentive on his part. So I don't think they're going to, well, I know for a fact they're not going to be like, hey, Stout, go cover Olave. And that's just not how they operate. So he's going to have help. They're going to be able to put in some situations, whether it's zone, whether it's a safety. They're not going to leave him on an island, especially not on the road like that. So Saleh's a smart enough coach where I'm not going to say they don't have to worry about Olave because he is a very good player. He's a quality wide receiver, but it's not going to come down to Stout versus Olave. If anything, it'll be Renardo Green, which he followed some of their top receivers, Seattle's top receivers in the slot if they have to. So Saleh's good enough at mixing his coverages and looks. And for all we know, it can be like last week where on third downs, he's just going to come after you and make you throw it before you want to throw it. So there's plenty of different ways to kind of dictate what the offense does.
I love what I'm seeing from Robert Saleh so far. I think there's plenty more where week one came from. We're going to see way more wrinkles as the season goes on. So excited what he could dial up against the Saints offense. So that's where I want to stay here, talking about the 49ers defensive line. I feel like this is a great matchup for them this week against the Saints offensive line. We already talked about some of the injuries. Penning's going to be out. Fuaga dealing with, a knee injury, so maybe not quite 100%. And even if he was, honestly, KP, I'd like this matchup. Nick Bosa going up against him. And you got Kelvin Banks on the other end as well. So I'm sure Bosa will have some snaps against him too. Bryce Huff had a pretty good pass rush win rate last week. So I feel good about where this is at. The 49ers, after week one, their defensive line ranks 9th in pressure percentage, 3rd in pass rush win rate. Saints offensive line after 1 week ranked 10th in pressure percentage allowed, 19th in pass block win rate. So, I mean, you got to feel pretty good about this matchup, and it might be the game changer in this one.
Yeah, for sure. So Fuaga, we'll see if he plays. But again, I feel like the 49ers kind of want him to play. And even if it's not, it's going to be a worse version at right tackle if he's not out there. You mentioned Banks. That's one of the games where Michael went off in college. He went against Banks. He had a sack for a forced fumble. He had a couple of pressures on him. So if anything, this could be a potential coming out party for Michael on the edge. So I don't know if anybody remembers that game, but last year, Texas versus Georgia, it was early in the season, and Michael was whipping him up and down the field. That was I remember that because I wasn't expecting that. I went in watching Banks, and I came away circling, okay, maybe I got to watch this guy too. So, I mean, they should have the advantage. And again, when I mentioned being able to come at you in waves, so you can come on off the bench with guys like Huff, Sam O, YGM. So they have plenty of different bodies and they have different athletes, I guess I would say, that should give the Saints just fits. And then, of course, the guy on the screen right there, inevitably, he is going to win, whether it's 3-4 times, whether it's only one sack, but he's going to have a game-changing play. We have years and years of history of that happen. So I imagine that's going to happen against a quarterback who is prone to make mistakes. He's going to give you the ball. He's going to run backward out of the pocket, maybe fumble, just make bad decisions. So defensively versus Saints offense is a very, very good matchup.
Two things. One thing that I really like in this matchup as well, the Saints had 6 pre-snap penalties in week one. So they're kind of putting themselves in unfavorable situations on offense, which is maybe that's part of the reason Rattler threw the ball so much in week one. But one thing about Rattler to counterpoint all of this is he did get the ball out very quickly. It's 6th fastest time to throw in week one. So if the 49ers are going to want to combat that, get to him quickly. But the thing is, I already mentioned his completion percentage was not good. So he's getting the ball out quick, but at what cost? It's not quality throws out there. So if the 49ers can force him into a similar situation where he's needing to get the ball out quick and it falls as an incompletion, I mean, that's a win. I mean, even if it doesn't fall as a stat line for Nick Bosa or whoever, that's a win in our books. So I think that's kind of what we see. But as far as, I guess, what Robert Saleh could do to maybe confuse, a pretty young, more inexperienced quarterback like Rattler, do you think we see, stuns, pre versus post snap looks and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, last week, Michael dropped into coverage a couple of times. Gross matchup.
That was weird.
So they're running little simulated pressures where a first level defender drops off into coverage, and one of the linebackers, usually D Winners, sometimes both Winners and Warner, will pass rush. Honestly, when you talk about confusing, I think they're going to try to get Kamara into pass protection. So last week, one-on-one a couple of times, he lost, and he lost pretty handily too. So we saw Winners literally run over a running back.
Leveled him.
Yeah, I would imagine we see, whether it's Warner, whether it's Winners, them go one-on-one with Kamara, who he just didn't look interested in pass blocking. So when that's the case, a guy who's as attentive as Saleh is probably going to take advantage of that. So I would imagine we see even more blitzing from the linebackers.
Oof, I hope so. Well, let's get back to the 49ers offense really quick. We talked about some pass catchers for the Saints that the 49ers should be cautious of. But here's a pass catcher on the 49ers side. I think they should look to spam with targets. Ricky Pearsall, right? And you kind of mentioned already, KP, like Isaac Yiadom is someone that they could target. I think Kool-Aid McKinstry, another guy, gave up a passer rating of 155 in his coverage against Marvin Harrison Jr. So, hey, I mean, I think based on what we saw Ricky Pearsall do to Tariq Woolen last week, maybe we see a similar performance. I think what we're seeing is that Pearsall is that good, and it's not just some fluke. It's not just like who he's going up against. He's a guy out there.
For sure. And I don't want to say he's as good as Marvin Harrison, because Marvin Harrison came into the league with expectations that like he is a top 5 pick. Pearsall was at the end, but Pearsall was getting open last week in the same way that Harrison was. So all up and down the field. And I would argue that Seattle's cornerback duo of Witherspoon and Woolen, like they're better than what they're about to see in week 2 between McKinstry, who, yes, like was supposed to be a first rounder. He fell a little bit, and like he doesn't really have the overwhelming athletic traits. And I think Pearsall could really give him fits in the same way that Harrison was. This route right here is a really good one. There was another one where Pearsall just ran like a 20-yard corner route. Like they never do that. That caught me all the way off guard.
I have another one. I don't know if it's the one you're talking about. No, I don't think this is the one you're talking about, but
I mean, being able to use him underneath on plays like that will probably go a long way too. But the fact that they can use Pearsall at every level, I think Ayuk is that kind of receiver. So having another wide receiver like that was, obviously he ran well, like he's fast, but to be able to see him win and run away from Woolen, who is a good cornerback, was, I don't want to say surprising, but that should be very encouraging for the 49ers offense. So yeah, man, if I'm Mac Jones, I'm looking his way early and often.
Yeah, he's definitely talented enough that I think you can get by without Kittle, and maybe Jennings is not quite 100% if you lean towards another guy who's pretty talented himself, and that would be Ricky Pearsall. So we kind of briefly talked about Jonas Sanker, but let's get into it because, I think Kyle Shanahan does this thing, and it was actually mentioned in that Athletic article where defensive coaches around the league ranked offensive play callers. One thing that they mentioned Kyle Shanahan did very well is kind of like targeting specific weak spots or weak links in opposing defenses, right? And I think this week, like Jonas Sanker, we don't know that he's bad, but and honestly, he was someone I really liked coming out of college. I think he's talented, but you always try to test the rookies, right? Coming out of the gate, his first game action, it's week 2, so pretty early in the season. I think this is someone Kyle Shanahan could maybe try to pick on.
Yeah, so last week in that game from the Saints and the Cardinals, like as talented as Marvin Harrison is, like he only lined up again, or he was only targeted, I should say, against a safety one time. Like that won't be the case. Pearsall, he had a target against linebacker. He had a target against a free safety. Like Shanahan moves him around for a reason to put him in a position to win. So I would imagine we are going to see him line up all over the formation too, and be able to go against guys like Sanker, who should be under the microscope, right? And not for any other reason that he's a rookie safety. Like that is the exact type of person that you pick on. So I'm going to be interested to see, Bourne's usage, Jennings' usage, if he plays, assuming that he does play since he is practicing today. Also, you were talking about injuries. Always remember they do not have we do not have access to the same drugs that they do. So I'd imagine he is going to feel a lot better come Sunday before the game, and then he'll be feeling just fine come halftime again. So those three, and then again, I really do think it's a big deal if they're able to get Watkins back, because he can run by people, and that just was not the case with Gage and MVS last week. So if they can roll out with the combo of Watkins, Pearsall, Jennings, and Bourne, that should be good. And it's going to be very difficult for a safety who's inevitably going to have to play man coverage against one of the 49ers wideouts.
God, this like weapons situation for the 49ers is so unpredictable. Like aside from Ricky Pearsall, Christian McCaffrey, I have no idea what type of involvement we can expect to see from Jennings this week because of the injury. No idea what involvement we can expect to see from Kendrick Bourne, who just signed like earlier this week. I know everyone's talking about, well, he's worked with Mac Jones before, but like Kyle Shanahan kind of downplayed that a little bit and said, like, we changed a lot of things in our offense. It doesn't really help him that much. It was 5 years ago. maybe the connection and the timing thing with Mac helps. But again, like how many routes could we expect him to run like this soon? I really don't know. Is MVS going to be a decoy again? Like, I don't know if this helps the 49ers, but I'm confused and I have no idea what to expect. So maybe that could be an advantage, but boy, like
I know it doesn't hurt. I will say that. And he has like over 1,400 yards, I believe, with Jones between the two of them. So they've been on the same. They've thrown enough passes. They've ran enough routes with each other. So getting Bourne on the field and being able to take Gage off the field is addition by subtraction, regardless if Bourne ever gets the ball. So I think that's an upgrade in that sense. And again, like if you can use Watkins as opposed to MVS because well, he actually might throw it to Watkins, and he's probably not going to throw it to MVS. So those little issues are, I guess, just from a personnel perspective, that should go a long way. But again, we know McCaffrey's going to get the ball. He had 10 targets last week. We know Pearsall's going to get the ball. He's our number one wide receiver. From there, it's like a coin flip, draw a name out of a hat. I don't know what's going to happen.
Oh, God. I'm afraid it's going to look like the Chiefs wide receiver group where it's just like, man, anyone that could catch a ball, like just toss it to him. All right. So I think the difference in this game, KP, is going to come down to which of these two quarterbacks can handle pressure the best. And I think we're very curious, and maybe we saw some glimpses in training camp and the preseason, but we're very curious to see what a Kyle Shanahan version of Mac Jones is going to look like. It's been, up and down, mostly down in his career, but that's kind of the scenario that favors these not random, but like these rehab projects that Kyle Shanahan brings in, kind of like a Sam Darnold. I think Mac Jones is more talented or at the time of them coming, I feel a lot better about Mac Jones than I did Sam Darnold. But Darnold has a 18 to 20 touchdown interception ratio over the last 2 seasons. He has gone 17 straight starts without throwing for 300 yards. So not quite like as big a threat as you would imagine, but Spencer Rattler on the other side, he's 0 of 8 through 8 career starts. Hasn't gone over 250 passing yards in any of those games. So it's kind of just like two quarterbacks who, hey, like whoever plays the best, that team is probably going to win.
Yeah, and it probably, I would say it comes down to whichever these guys don't make the most amount of mistakes, right? Because like what is it going to take? Maybe 17 points, 20 points to win this game? The Saints were decent on defense last week, but they did at the same time, like they gave up enough explosives in the passing game where you're like, okay, even Mac Jones, because we're talking about Kyle Shanahan's scheme. We shouldn't be talking about as much as Mac Jones as like the receivers are probably going to get open because that's just how this offense works. So if Mac Jones can put the ball on them and they can go a couple 15s, a couple 20s, maybe another explosive play here and there, while the ground game should inevitably be better. I don't know. Like I trust Mac Jones not to make as much mistakes in this scheme as opposed to Rattler knowing the defensive coordinator and the defense he's going against and how he's been prone over time, over just last year, even in college, high school, just to do dumb stuff. Like that's just what type of player he is. That's why he fell. He's very talented, but he can't help himself. So I think Rattler's going to throw himself into mistakes, and Jones just has to, he's been around long enough where he should be able to stay away from those.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And my score prediction for this week definitely reflects that. Just like a low-scoring game, mostly defensive battle, just whatever quarterback can get them over the hump a little better than the other. I think field goals are going to be a big deal in this game, which kind of – it's a good thing for the 49ers that they're going in with a new kicker here that maybe you'll have some confidence in because it could be the difference in this one. My score prediction for this week is going to be 17-9, low scoring.
Yeah, no, I like that. It's going to be an ugly game. Thankfully, it's over, or it starts at 10, so we can get on with our day because it is not going to be a fun game to watch. I would be shocked. Honestly, I would be very surprised if the Saints score more than 14 points. Like I would be very shocked if that were to happen. And if that did happen, that either tells me, special teams blunder, offensive turnover, where they basically were gifted a touchdown. Because over the course of 13, 12, however many drives you get, you're probably going to score 1 touchdown. You might be able to muster 2 field goals, but man, I think he's going to be able to respond. Saleh's going to be able to adjust because that's what he did very well last week. I'm going to say 23-10, something like that.
Okay.
Because I do think the 49ers march, but I think they're going to get stalled in the red zone. And then I think the defense is able to hold over the course of the game. So, yeah, I have 33 points being scored. So not like it's a shootout my way either.
Right. And as we were live here, we haven't gotten yet the game status for the 49ers. I think they're still practicing here. We'll hear from Kyle Shanahan later. But for the sake of leaving you guys with something, my prediction, and KP, you could let me know what you think, but my prediction, obviously, Brock's going to be out. From there, I think Trent Williams and Jauan Jennings probably get the questionable designation for this one, and that's probably it.
Yeah, I'm assuming that Trent and Jauan both play. I know I'm not going to say if they're out, now the 49ers won't score at all, but I think they have a large they're a big reason, a primary reason why the 49ers will have some success. I know Jennings had a pretty tough matchup last week, and I know who knows how healthy he is. Who knows if he would be able to lift his shoulder. But if he is there this week, I think he has a much, much better matchup. So I could see them leaning on Jennings over the middle or at least underneath stuff. So if Mac Jones is indeed playing hot potato, like that is the type of wide receiver who could thrive.
I just saw this before we head out of here from a couple hours ago. The 49ers worked out a punter.
I just saw that too.
What, does he maybe kick? I don't know. No, it wouldn't even matter if the Saints had a different, a punter that kicks with a left leg. I mean, would that even matter? Would you even bring him in this late, or is something going on with the 49ers punter?
I wonder if they've done that before. I tried to Google and I wondered if, does he have any connection to Eddie Pinheiro? But no, he hasn't played in he was drafted in 2021, but he has no NFL experience. So I don't know, especially on a Friday too.
Right. I guess we'll see. But yeah, that does it for us today. Make sure that you guys like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review. And as always, make sure you guys check out KP's articles and everyone else who does great work on NinersNation.com. For now, folks, have a good rest of your Friday. Enjoy the game. I'll be at the game, so maybe I'll do a little drunken post-game instant reaction. We'll see. Yeah, it'll be a mess. But all right, I'll talk to you guys later. Have a great weekend. Peace.